I have friends who had significant damage, who were either places where people came as refugees from rising water, or people who were displaced from that, who in some cases were displaced for a second or third time in as many years from rising water in Houston. So, that the impact of that, just to make me aware of that. But then I've also lived in Boston for a considerable part of my life, and Boston is going to be dramatically affected by rising seawater. One of the neighborhoods that I lived in, basically where I lived was high enough up that I would just be walking down to Boston Harbor about 100 yards instead of a half a mile, but the projected sea levels. I fly in and out of Boston fairly regularly because I can get places better. Logan Airport will be underwater. It will not exist.
Seaplanes.
Yeah, exactly. Where I'm living now in North Conway is a tourist area. It's dramatically affected by extremes of weather because last winter was coldish for there, but not as much snow as they normally get. So the ski season was shorter, and they couldn't make snow as early as they normally do. This year we've gone the opposite extreme. It's already been colder in the month of November than it's been in several Novembers, and we got snow much, much earlier. So the ski resorts are having a field day. They've been making snow, and in a couple of cases they opened a couple of weeks early. That's great for tourism, but it's temporary. And it's interesting to hear people who live there long term reflect back on how consistent it used to be. They could pretty much say that ski season was the third weekend in November to the third weekend in April. And they were consistent with that with very little variation. And now, just since 2000, it's varied by as much as 4 weeks on either end. I'm only there temporarily. I'm aware that wherever I go next as an interim, the climate change issues are going to be completely different. So I'm going to have to be aware of that, and how that kind of changes how I even do ministry with people. Because if I'm going to a place where it's more prone to flooding or more prone to extreme storms, that's going to have a play in how I do my ministry. For me personally, I'm keenly aware of the fact that one of the things that I could do on my own to make even the smallest difference is to not eat as much meat. I have the wisdom of that. I have the knowledge of that. I just don't have the willpower yet. And that's my own personal foible. So to be able to share that, say, yep, I'm guilty. I'm contributing more than I need to. At some point, I want to get a car that's got better gas mileage, but I like my car, and it handles really well in the ice and snow, so it's a good practical car for where I am now. There's a trade-off there, and like you were saying, it does become that bigger moral issue, Tim, of how do we make those trade-offs and balances for where we are at this particular time, for what we can and can't do, and collectively, can we do enough in our own places? One thing I have done is I've stopped using straws. It's small and it's, but I want to be part of the solution, so I stopped using straws, unless I'm driving in the car.